So do you have an idea for an opening bit this week?
Nope.
No, neither do I. And here's what I'm thinking. This is one of Relient K's biggest songs.
Yeah.
So potentially a lot of people will just hear this episode and decide if they're going to listen to the rest of our show. So we need something really, really good.
It's a lot of pressure.
To open it up so people know and forgive us when they listen to other episodes and we have
It was
bad
really good
comedy
to
bits
start
to
out
open the
this episode by stumbling through this opening part. That really engages listeners.
Welcome to the show.
This is no place to try and live my life. Stop right there, that's exactly where I lost it. See that line, I never should have crossed it. Stop right there, I never should have said that. It's the very moment that I wish that I could take back. Stop right there, that's exactly where I lost it. See that line, where I never should have crossed it. Stop right there, where I never should have said that. It's the very moment that I wish that I could take back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sadie Hawkins Pod.
Welcome to Sadie Halfway Pod.
That's right.
Yes. Special promotional event.
You keep pitching this Sadie Halfway Pod, and I keep being like thinking of a halfway house. That's all I can think of every time you say it, instead of halfway through the discography.
Yeah, I guess. Oh boy, I hope no one thought that's the word halfway is a word. Halfway.
It is.
I guess it just okay. Well, now thanks
Sorry.
for ruining
Oops.
it.
Oops.
Not trying to like offend anyone who has drug addiction problems. Well, maybe we'll workshop it, but we're welcome to Sadie Halfway Pod.
Sorry, I just threw you.
It's totally fine. But yeah, so this week we kind of realized, because I was updating our spreadsheet and checking off the songs we've done, and I realized we're halfway through our spreadsheet of Relient K songs. That doesn't necessarily mean that this show is exactly at the halfway point, because we're gonna do individual episodes of songs from the Earthquakes album from Wind Up Bird,
right?
And we're gonna redo older episodes eventually.
And hopefully, knock on wood, we'll be getting some new Relient K content at some point,
Yeah.
so we'll have to do those songs.
So this isn't specifically, we didn't start out on this show. I think in our 0 episode, I was even, non-committal. We'll try to do every Relient K song.
Right.
But ultimately, we're doing it. We're going for it. But it's just it's a momentous moment when I realized, hey, we're halfway through the main list.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this is Sadie Halfway Pod.
And how are we celebrating?
Well, we're celebrating with this special anticlimactic promotional event. So yeah, it's a promotional title for the show, saying E.T. and His Adventures on Earth. That's not the official title.
Right.
Or Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat. That's not the official title.
So you're saying we're not changing the name of the podcast?
We're not actually changing the name of the podcast, but we're just noting that we're halfway through the spreadsheet, and I
just want to say you've made this event sound way more exciting than just you're going to have to listen to us talk about the same 2 songs for a full month.
Well, that's what we're doing specifically. We kind of fell backwards into, scheduling Who I Am Hates Who I've Been and Be My Escape around the same time. It actually had something more to do with the fact that we have guests for these songs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of booked them in the same time. Oh no, we're doing not only are we doing 2 songs back to back, but we're doing the 2 biggest songs. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking, I started thinking about it. And then when I realized we were halfway through the spreadsheet, I'm like, well, yeah, that's what we're doing. Because there's a number of things that in this year and a half of doing this show, there's a number of things we've learned and grown with as far as doing a podcast.
Sure.
I think as far as our talent as podcasters, I think we've hit a ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we're definitely better than we were a year and a half ago.
Are you sure?
Yes, we're definitely better than we were 85 weeks ago, but I don't think we're going to get better from here. So I feel like from here, we should think of it as we're entering a new chapter. We've done it. This is almost like the end of season 1 of Sadie Hawkins
at least we made it this far, and it all looks good from there.
And so to be doing what are essentially Relient K's 2 biggest songs from a a standpoint, I mean, there are obviously songs that might be bigger in the Relient K community.
Right.
But these are objectively their biggest songs to the world at large. Because these are their 2 top songs on Spotify. And I assume any other streaming service. And these are their 2 biggest charting singles of all time. These have had the biggest mainstream success. Because this week we're doing, for the next 2 weeks, we're doing Who I Am, Who I've Been. And then the 2 weeks after that, we're doing Be My Escape. And the other thing is, like, you would think of most song-by-song podcasts as sort of like saving the big songs for towards the end. But I'm like, Who I Am, Who I've Been and Be My Escape are so ubiquitous that I don't have a ton to say about them.
Right.
So I kind of want to celebrate the halfway point with getting these songs done now. And it'll also help, like, kind of dictate the second half, quote-unquote, of the show. So because these are such major songs, there's going to be a lot of work for us, but we're going to do, like I said, 2-parters for the next 4 weeks. Today is part 1 of Who I Am, Who I've Been. Who I Am, Who I've Been part 2 is next week, and then the 2-parter for Be My Escape. Previously, a couple weeks ago, I said we were going to spread the Be My Escape 2-parter out by like a couple weeks, but we've gone back on that. We changed our mind, so it's all part of Sadie Halfway Pod.
That's right. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day as we move on from house cleaning, top of the show business.
Yes.
Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
If you celebrate, top of the morning to you. Get yourself a cookie opus.
That's right. Jessica, when Jessica and I, like, we were just engaged or married, we were living in the New Jersey, New York area. And she had never heard of a cookie puss, right? I don't think you had.
No, I had not.
What I recall, this is one of those memories where I'm like, I feel like you might not remember it
the
the same
way. I
way,
thought you were being like weird or dirty or something. I thought he was making
You
it
had
up.
heard of Carvel cakes.
Yeah.
And you had certainly seen like references and you'd been to a Carvel in your life, but in the places you lived, Carvel was not like a special thing that everyone, like when I grew up in the Northeast in the Boston area, Carvel was a special thing. I actually don't think they really have them there anymore.
Brewster's and Twisty Treat, I think, were like the 2 bigger kind of ones in the South that we had. Yeah, Carvel, the area of the South that I grew up in, or the couple areas of the South that I grew up in, Carvel was not like a thing. And I'm sure that if you wanted an ice cream cake, like, and you went to the store, they had the Carvel cakes in the freezer section, but like, I have no memory of going into a standalone Carvel or of their themed cakes.
Right.
Like, I certainly had ice cream cakes growing up at birthday parties, but not like a Fudgy the Whale or a Cookie Puss or anything.
Today, you can pretty much go into any grocery store across most of the country and get a Carvel cake out of the freezer section. But the Carvel themed character cakes are only available at standalone stores, and they're not even available at all standalone stores. It's still a regional thing. And in like 2009, I told Jessica, like, I made a joke about Cookie Opus, and she thought I was making up something dirty, and I'm like, no. And it took me some convincing. I had to show her YouTube videos, and then she was totally charmed by Cookie Puss and Cookie Opus.
And we got one for St. Patrick's Day.
We had to drive to because again, not every standalone Carvel has the character cakes. We had to drive to Princeton.
Because we were living in New York City at the time, so we drove to Princeton, New Jersey to find a Carvel that
where the college is, and they had a Carvel there that had character cakes, and so I got her a Cookie Puss. Is that as loud as it is? It's a VHS
This is
rip.
as loud as it goes. Let me try a different one. Oh, jeez.
The commercials are amazing.
We want everybody.
The family is your own Carvel ice cream store. Would love to make a single.
I'm gonna post this on St. Patrick's Day before the episode comes out.
Any day that you want America's freshest ice cream, please visit them.
God bless Tom Carvel.
And
I love when he's like
his
possible murder. Yeah, I love how he's like, welcome to Carvel. They're beautiful and waiting for you. There's one of the commercials where he calls the cakes. He's like, they're beautiful and waiting to be taken home. Like, I can't do the gravel, but like, yeah. So for
Cookie
Opus.
Cookie Opus. So for those of you listening to us for the first time, because we're doing Who I Am, It's Who I've Been, welcome.
Welcome.
This is what the show is like.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Netflix or HBO Max to do the Tom Carvel Was He Murdered docuseries.
Wonderful. I'm going to go on, I finally joined Reddit. Like, I finally came into the 21st century, and I'm on Reddit now. And because I do love the true crime, a friend of mine just sent me this SNL thing that was like, it's got to be the best thing SNL has done since, I don't know, the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, where it's called Murder Show. Mm-hmm. And she sent it to me yesterday, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so true. This is like so me. I think it's like most women, to be honest.
Jessica loves true crime.
Ladies love true crime.
Ladies love, LL Cool J's name stands for Ladies Love Cool James.
Yeah.
He should change his name to Ladies Love
LLTC. Ladies love true crime.
LL Trucy.
Here, you want to watch this? Because you haven't seen this yet.
Okay.
We won't watch the whole thing.
And then we'll start getting into the real meat of the podcast.
What are you gonna do?
I don't know, just finish up work and relax.
Okay, well, don't miss me too much.
I will.
All right, bye.
I don't know who any of these SNL people are.
Okay, that was Nick Jonas.
I have the whole night to unwind.
And do a little self-care.
The only way I know how.
I'm gonna watch a murder show. I'm gonna watch a murder show. Netflix.
Oh, it's a music video.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna watch a murder show. YouTube, Hulu, that's my favorite thing to do. Sisters got killed on a cruise in the
It's true. Women love murder shows.
Yeah.
Jessica loves true
That's
crime.
how you unwind.
Ladies love true crime.
I won't play the rest for you, but there's this part to
I
it.
wasn't expecting it to take the form of a music video.
Oh, sorry.
You told me
I
the
should have
basic
warned
premise
you.
earlier, but you didn't warn me it was a music video.
There's this part where it's like after I've finished like watching this series on this specific killer, I'm gonna go listen to a podcast about that same killer, and I'm like, OMG, that is 100% me. Like,
Well, you love true crime, but I love voicemails from our listeners. So we have a voicemail. Smooth transition. We have a voicemail that we've actually been sitting on for a couple weeks because we have had packed shows recently. This is from Sean, and he's calling about past episodes. And that's so fitting because this is the quote-unquote season finale of Sadie Hawkins' pod.
right?
So the 4-part season finale. So it's fitting to look. Sean can help us look back at our first season as he's listening through episodes for the first time.
Hey, Dan and Jeff, this is Sean from Pennsylvania again. I wanted to call in about this song, but I wanted to wait until I got a little more caught up listening back through the episodes and everything, and a little more than halfway through now, so I figured better do it now. But anyway, wanted to also, fair warning, this might end up being a two-parter.
Appropriate, ties in, two-parter.
Nice, yes. Actually, he left...
We planned this.
Yes, and then he also left a third voicemail about a different song that will play in another episode. But let's continue with this particular voicemail, which I just lost where
Sorry.
we were. Through the magic of editing, you at home will have no idea we lost our place.
I wanted to talk about Faking My Own Suicide, which, first off, major props for diving into perhaps one of the more controversial songs right after doing your initial run of all the first tracks. That was, pretty bold. But I just got to say, I pretty much agree with Jess on this one. The song just, as I got older and everything, just kind of took on a whole less appealing feel to it to me and everything, which is just kind of weird because for the longest time, 5 Score, like from the moment it came out, was like my favorite Relient K album. And it was for many years, even past, like Forget Not Slow Down and everything. I was, like wholly embracing the transition into, what I call pop rock Relient K. I thought it had some of their best songs. It has some like really fantastic songs on it and everything. But it's just like over time, the Faking My Own Suicide, and even Deathbed to a lesser extent, but that's another phone call, kind of just taints the whole album, and it's like I can't hold it up there with what I consider to be my favorites now. I mean, it's still like top 5, obviously, but it's just not there. And really, Faking My Own Suicide is the biggest drawback. I mean, I kind of understand where Danny's coming from and saying that it's satirical, or it's not meant to be taken seriously. And because, I'm pretty sure no one thinks that Matt Thiessen is serious whenever he says that he wants to fake his own suicide and everything. I don't think anyone would be. It's just, I feel like Danny made a comment about, or maybe it didn't, I don't know. I kind of drew a comparison to Randy Newman with his satirical songs and everything, most notably Short People, where he's talking about how he doesn't like short people and doesn't want them around and everything. But I feel like the main difference between like Randy Newman and...
Are you familiar with Randy Newman, aside from like Toy Story and the Family Guy bit from the early season of Family Guy?
I
like
am
the lady
not.
takes a bite of an apple. So yeah, his songs are very satirical and very like silly and stuff without being specifically comedy music. And
it's a name that I've heard, but I'm not familiar with.
Well, you mainly know him from the Toy Story
maybe
songs. So...
Oh, does he do You Got a Friend in Me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And, so there's a song where he's like, I hate short people.
Gotcha.
And I guess it's like, I can't remember. I have heard the song, but I don't remember now if he's talking about, little people is the preferred term.
Right.
For people who have like dwarfism and genetic reasons for being short. But I don't know if it was like, he's actually mocking people like that, or if he's actually, just referring to people who are a little shorter.
Right.
I don't remember. But yeah, it's like a weird, almost ableist song in hindsight, whereas maybe it was not taken that way in the 70s, or maybe
probably
it was never
not
intended as that way.
Yeah, probably not.
I can see how there's a comparison here to Faking My Own Suicide, where the real ramifications of such an idea in reality don't necessarily hit you when you first hear the song. And then you think about it more, especially as... there's more consciousness in the world at large for these kind of issues. Right. I totally see the connection here that Sean is getting at.
Faking My Own Suicide is a Randy Newman song, just like with the way it sounds. Somehow the way that he wrote that song, that he is just not being serious and this is ridiculous and you're not supposed to take it seriously. And I just feel like the way that Faking My Own Suicide is presented, the way it sounds, and the way that it's put on this album that has sincere love songs on it and all these other just really sincere songs, its placement, the actual meaning, if it is intended to be taken, like completely unseriously, like it's a joke song, it just gets lost. And it's also like, this album came out in 2007. I was like 16 or 17 when this came out. I was a teenage boy who, had crushes on girls, and how, none of us fully know how to process our feelings and everything like that at that age.
Oh, I feel like we're getting numb to people who are like who are basically implying they were born in the 90s or the 2000s, right?
Yeah.
It used to be, we'd hear something like, Jessica would hear something like that, and she'd be like,
Yeah, I was like 19 when this album came out.
Okay, so you're not that much older than him.
Yeah.
I was like 25. How much?
You were like 23.
Okay.
And it's, juxtaposed against these love songs, and you're kind of like, oh, what girl's going to be my best thing? And what girl am I going to say I must have done something right about and everything? And then you have Faking My Own Suicide, which if you have a boy like me who's dealing with unrequited feelings and everything, you kind of wonder, well, what kind of grand gesture is it going to take for this girl to notice? And I don't know. It just, I feel like some people can easily take this the wrong way. I don't think anyone's actually going to fake their own suicide, but I think it is going to just, encourage some unhealthy thoughts and feelings and everything. And that's really just my thoughts on, Faking My Own Suicide. I'm on Jess's side with this one. Five Score was my favorite album for a very, very long time, but that particular song just can't allow it to be that anymore. So, yeah. Once again, great job on the podcast. Loving all you're doing. Keep it up. Bye.
It's true. I hadn't really thought of it like that because I think you and I are so used to having come in with Relient K during the first 3 gears.
Right.
So we're
used to the idea that they have funny songs.
The joke songs, yeah. But I'm looking through 5 Score, and he's right. Like, through the track listings, because they didn't go goofy on And on 5 Score, they don't really have a lot. I mean, they have Pleading the Fifth a cappella, but even that has a serious tone to it. So there aren't really a lot of those goofy sort of joke songs during this era of Relient K.
Right.
Which, again, this would go into why I feel that the trilogy of this time is 5 Score and Forget Not Slow Down, because you don't have all that sort of, you have a big maturing in there.
You have mature, earnest songs.
Yeah.
We talked about this on my girl's ex-boyfriend episode, where I said that's the cheesiest song on and the goofiest, wackiest, schmackiest thing on is the title of the worst thing to beat than a dead horse is to bet on one.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I know I got that wrong, but the wackiest thing on is the title of an otherwise earnest song.
Yeah.
Whereas in the first 3 albums, you have like Breakfast at Timpani's.
Right.
And
Kids on the Street.
Kids on the Street, but also like actual songs as well. You have May the Horse Be With You.
Silly
and
Shoes.
Silly Shoes. The hidden tracks are all silly. We're going to get to that someday. The awful joke rap. And I Am Lion-O. And all of these like jokey songs alongside earnest.
And pop culture reference songs.
Pop culture
You've got
references.
a lot more of that. And so now you're taking something that is a pop culture reference, although not specifically referenced in the song, where Thiessen has said that it's about the 70s movie Harold and Maude.
And it also obviously pulls from Adventures of
Tom Sawyer.
Tom Sawyer.
Absolutely.
So Relient K became more earnest. They still had a sense of humor, but humor was no longer really a part of their persona by specifically, other than, I'm sure, stage banter and some art and some videos that they would make. But the actual music started to strip away the comedy, which is something we've talked about before. And you have a band like Five Iron Frenzy where it's very similar. Like, aside from the fact that they were a ska band and everyone thinks of ska as goofy, they did have goofy songs and totally earnest songs. And now they pretty much just have earnest songs. Yeah. Even, a song, even on their last album. Like, now the new album is completely only earnest. And even the last album was mostly earnest in tone with, like, battle dancing unicorns and stuff, but it's still not like it's still not like as wacky a song as they had done previously. So I get exactly what Sean is kind of getting at here. If you join, which is fitting for what we're going to talk about the song this week, if you sort of learn about Relient K at this, peak that they had with Capitol Records, they seem like a more earnest pop punk, pop rock band. Whereas before, in their youth group touring years, they were wacky, goofy guys with wacky, goofy songs.
Yeah. And I like that he said that that Deathbed taints it a little bit as well. So, hey, Sean from Pennsylvania, you're my new favorite caller.
You guys can do Deathbed Part 2 someday.
Where we just don't talk about the song at all.
Oh, and that's one other thing before we get into talking about who I am and who I've been this week. For this like proposed second half of Sadie Hawkins' pod, as we just kind of approach things differently, but nothing will like visually change or change in the way we format the show. But I do want to start approaching and accepting more guests on the show. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's a part of the next 4 weeks is we have some other guests lined up. None of them are in the band. I just want to curb expectations. Yeah. But I do want to start approaching people who are...
When you say we have an event, Danny, people are going to think, oh, big doings.
No, yeah, not that big. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Sean, for calling.
Hey, we have Australian guests on the show this time, and it's not Dinny.
Yes. I didn't even mention Dinny to them. Because this week, I don't know if it'll be in this part or next... Oh, no, wait. It'll be this week. We're splitting it in half, right? That's what we decided to do.
Yes.
So we have a guest this week, and it's Sam and Emma from the Punk Goes podcast. And since they're a covers podcast...
Oh, I thought that's where they talked about Punk Goes Pod. It's a podcast where they talk about another podcast.
Yes? No. It's where they talk about the Punk Goes series from Fearless Records. We were on their Manic Monday episode, so they're appearing on this episode because Who I Am Hates Who I've Been acoustic is on one of the Punko's acoustic CDs. So yeah, we're going to split that first half at the end of this episode and the second half next week.
So Who I Am Hates Who I've Been was released in June of 2005 as the second single off of from 2004. There is an acoustic version of the song, which, as you just said, we'll be discussing later with our guests, which was originally recorded for the Apathetic EP, but didn't make the cut and later appeared on the Bird and the B-sides, as well as Punko's acoustic too. There is so much information this week, I feel like we're doing an actual music podcast.
Right. This is the sort of thing I was talking about. I think it got cut from our conversation with Josh from Reliable J. That he mentioned at one point how more non-Christian or more mainstream media savvy people are more familiar with "Be My Escape." That's the big Relient K song. Whereas more Christian leaning kids or Christian people who came up as Christian kids, Sadie Hawkins Dance is the main song for Relient K. And this song, and we didn't mention it at the time, and the part got cut out of our conversation with Josh anyway. But this song was on the radio. The song was like the first sort of big hit for Relient K's, chance at the mainstream. And
according to Billboard.com, this song spent 11 weeks on the chart and peaked at 58th on March 3rd, 2006 on the Billboard Hot 100. Compared to Be My Escape, which only spent 4 weeks on the chart and peaked at number 82, August 5th, 2005, which surprises me because I definitely remember Be My Escape playing on the radio in the summer of 2005. Like, I remember that vividly. Right. And I don't really remember hearing Who I Am Hates Who I've Been, although it is certified gold in the US.
Right. I have a memory. The last time I ever talked to a member of Relient K directly was at Warped Tour 2005 in Massachusetts. We didn't get there in time for Relient K's performance. We missed it. But then we were at the stage for May, and Hoops was just in the audience. And me and my friend Johnny, and we had another friend there, we went up to him. We're like, hey, and because they still knew us and recognized us at that time. We're like, hey, Matt Hoops. And he's like, hey, how you doing? And we just actually stood there with Matt Hoops and watched May. And the big question I had for him in between was how all of a sudden Relient K was on the radio, like out of nowhere. And I'd been following Relient K since the first album. And it goes right with the history that's kind of recorded and known about the band now, is Matt Hoops' reaction to that at me in 2005 at Warped Tour talking to him was, yeah, it just kind of happened. And it seemed crazy that he's like, oh yeah, it just kind of happened. But now we know in hindsight that this album was recorded for Goatee Records. It had nothing to do with Capitol Records, and that they just bumped it up to Capitol because they were all part of this. All the Goatee and Capitol are part of the same parent company. Yeah. And I believe John Schneck, when he was on our show, even said, I definitely heard someone in the band say they didn't know they were on Capitol until the CD had already been repressed. So some of the first pressings of this album are Goatee only, and then pretty quickly, within a couple weeks, it got repressed with the Capitol logo on the back.
In 2006, this song was nominated for a Dove Award for Rock Recorded Song of the Year at the 37th GMA Dove Awards.
Everybody's winning a Dove Award, please. There's so many Dove Awards.
Jeez. I just they were nominated. I don't...
Gotcha, whatever.
They didn't win. Do you want me to find out who won that year?
No, I really don't care. But the thing is, the thing about the Dove Awards is I feel like they give those away like candy. You know what I mean? It's like
when are we getting our Dove Award then?
Yeah, when are we getting our Dove Award? Just so much stuff gets Dove Award.
Worst Christian podcast of the year goes to...
Exactly. I don't feel like I got to my point about that Matt Hoops story, but when I spoke to him, it was either Be My Escape or Who I Am Hates Who I've Been, and I don't remember which one it was that I was like, hey, this song's on the radio, and he was like, yeah, it just sort of happened. I don't know if it was Who I Am Hates Who I've Been or Be My Escape, but if you remember Be My Escape being on the radio in the summer of 2005, then maybe it was Be My Escape.
I'm so confused as to how the Dove Awards works, because it looks like everybody who's nominated just wins. I'm confused by their Wikipedia page. Awards, general.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, it's bold. It's in bold who won. Okay.
Yeah. I just feel like everyone has been nominated for or won a Dove Award. I feel like it's one of the most non-exclusive awards in the world. Every time you search out information about a Christian artist, they've absolutely won a Dove Award. It's like when Homer Simpson wins a Grammy. Right. And then like he uses it as a tip, and he's like, "Oh wow, an award statue. Oh, it's a Grammy," and he throws it over the balcony, and someone throws it back.
Pop / contemporary recorded song of the year, Be My Escape, was nominated, but Cry Out to Jesus by Third Day won. Where's the rock section?
Well, it's got the J word in the title.
Sure. They did win for rock album of the year that year, however. Gotcha. And The Slam by Toby Mac featuring T-Bone is the song that won rock recorded song of the year that year. Also nominated was Lay Down My Pride by Jeremy Camp, Let Go by Barlow Girl, The Wait Is Over by Discipline.
I've heard of all of
Disciple.
those
Disciple. Sorry.
I was going to say, I've heard of all those bands with Discipline.
No, that's wrong. Wait, it is Disciple.
Yeah, I would think it's Disciple. It's a very
I don't know. I don't see why it couldn't be Discipline.
Discipline is their whole thing would be like spare the rod, spoil the child.
It's just a picture of a dude with like a shirtless back, and he's got like the flagelling thing or whatever you call it, and he's got like scars on his back.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's inappropriate.
No, it makes sense. I don't know.
So this song is also cited as being, this is a Bad Friend Thiessen song.
Right. This is
the
number one
Bad Friend Thiessen song.
Bad Friend Thiessen song. I feel like this will dictate all discussion about Bad Friend Thiessen songs from here on out.
Yeah, because this song is being cited as Thiessen writing it in Australia after a fight with Brian Pittman, the bassist. And I feel like this is the most on-tour band drama we've ever heard about with Relient K.
Right.
Like, so rock and roll, just getting into a fight with your bassist and then writing a song about it.
Exactly. In Australia.
In Australia. Which is why he sings, I watched the pervert. Also, very, very appropriate that our guests this week are from Australia.
Right.
And he sings, I watched the proverbial sunrise coming up over the Pacific end, which normally the sun rises in the east and sets in the west.
Uh-huh.
On the continent that we are on. And so therefore...
Is it opposite?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I wouldn't think so. But I've seen that according to Genius, that is why. That's the clue into this lyric. And I'm like, is that a thing or is that a joke like that the toilet flushes the wrong way?
I guess, we should have asked our guests. But now I don't know. I never thought about it. And I don't
never
feel
thought
like,
about the line.
I don't feel like this is one of those things where I should know this. And like I was taught it in school. I feel like I've never heard which way the sun rises and sets in the southern hemisphere.
I've been sitting on this information for 2 days, and I could have looked it up in those 2 days, and I didn't.
Wow.
Oh, DuckDuckGo, you aren't going to help me. I need Google for this.
It says east.
Yeah. So it says here, it's also, I went over to Google, the sun, the stars, and the moon rise in the east and always set in the west because the earth spins towards the east.
Wait a second.
So,
you think we'd know a little bit about the planet Earth, but the Pacific is on the east side of Australia.
Is it?
The Pacific is over here on the west, and across that ocean is Australia, which means it's on the opposite side of their country.
So it is right.
It is right.
No.
Oh, we're thinking about it wrong.
The sun is coming up over the Pacific end, right? Because we live in California on this side of the Pacific.
It's not
the west. And there we go.
We think Pacific is part and parcel with West.
We've already lost any new listeners that we had at this point.
No, I think we're learning something you're supposed to learn in 4th grade.
Yeah.
I just never thought. Okay, there's 2 ways to think about it.
I've learned a lot of information since I learned that. That information has been pushed out of my head for like.
You know what? I don't feel that bad about never having thought about where the sun rises, which ocean the sun rises over in Australia, because I do listen to Punko's pod, And because they talk about so many American bands from specific American regions, they don't know a lot about American geography.
Sure.
This isn't just us being dumb Americans. I think, even though this has more to do with the planet at large than just, this is not regional Australian stuff. Still, I'm saying, I'm giving myself a break for this. You know what? I hate who I was that didn't realize the sun comes up over the Pacific in Australia, but still over in the East. But now, I'm not that person anymore. So what else do you have to say about this?
I absolutely remember rocking out to this song and doing like extra exaggerated rock moves and interpretive dance moves to this song in high school. And again, thank goodness YouTube was not a thing then, because I absolutely would have been one of these excited teens with a camera that we come across every week, making their very earnest Relient K videos.
So this is a song that is a little too ubiquitous in the Relient K world for me, so I do get a little bored with it. You know what I mean? The thing is, I'm a big MXPX fan, but I feel the same way about Punk Rock Show. Like, I kind of love that MXPX always ends with Punk Rock Show, because I can be standing by the door. I'm like, I've heard this song 20 million times. I don't need to get in the pit and mash it up during Punk Rock Show anymore. So I, like, make my way towards the door during that portion. And I felt the same way about this, since I had this album before it got pushed up to Capitol, and I listened to it, and I loved And I was like, oh, here's clearly their maturing album, which I was used to the idea. I'd already been into music long enough that I knew any goofy band eventually has the non-goofy album. Right. I talked about it once with Reggie and the Full Effect, how they had, although I've learned recently, I guess, Reggie's a problem.
Uh-oh.
But whatever. That has nothing to do with this.
What about the Full Effect?
I don't know. Let's not throw out the Full Effect with the bath with the Reggie water.
Yeah, exactly.
They had all their goofy, crazy parody songs in the early Reggie and the Full Effect albums, and then with Songs Not to Get Married To, it was like mostly completely earnest. There were like 2 joke songs on that album. Like, I was used to this idea that a band will ultimately have their completely non-jokey album, and that was and I was like, cool. It still sounds like Relient K to me, and I was happy with it. But when I listened to it, I did think, oh, Be My Escape is like probably the perennial song off of this album. But it never occurred to me, listening to the album when I first did, that Who I Am, It's Who I've Been would be a single. There's so many songs that feel like they could be singles, like This Week, The Trend, and The One I'm Waiting For? Is that on this, or is it on the next album?
That's on,
Good.
I'm just sitting here letting him flounder.
No, for some reason in my mind, I was like, is The One I'm Waiting For on 5 Score?
No, it's the first track.
I know, but whatever. So I just never occurred to me that Who I Am, It's Who I've Been would be considered a single. It obviously did become a single a year later. So to me, this is still a jam. It just, to me, it's no bigger in my mind than This Week, The Trend. Whereas Be My Escape, I could tell the first time I heard it that was going to be a single.
The breakdown in the middle of this song, where it slows down and the piano comes in, is so beautiful. And it's like I So Hate Consequences. There's that guitar reverb with the piano. And this is one of those things that Relient K is just so good at. It gives you this feeling of hope. And it's almost like they're delivering a testimony in that moment before kicking right back into rocking out again. And it's like what the bands who stop the show to deliver a mini sermon in the middle of their set are always trying to achieve. But Relient K is able to do that in these just soft moments in their music. And I think that that's really amazing. So now I kind of understand where these song meanings and blog opinions come from, where they think every song, especially from this like sort of time period, is about God, because a lot of these songs, especially like I said from 5 Score Forget era, have this elevated praise and worship breakdown in them, which it flows so beautifully and it works really well and is not a thing that they were doing in a lot of other pop punk groups at the time. And I just think that it's really beautiful, and it's what makes this song stand out. It's what makes a lot of the songs on this album and from this era stand out.
Right. Yeah, and when all the piano was on, it didn't even occur to me at the time how significant that was, because I always knew about Thiessen's like Beach Boys influences.
Right.
I always thought of them from their first 3 Gears period at the time as not really being a punk band. I knew that they could do more specific things. I always thought of them more in a pop rock Weezer vein. And it was pretty much just like the zeitgeist, like just hammering the idea of pop punk being the phrase that you'd call all of these bands. Like I don't think of a band like Paramore or Fall Out Boy as a pop punk band.
I thought you were going to just say that you didn't really think of them, period.
Well, I don't really think of Fall Out Boy. I don't fight it. I understand that people lump all of this mid-2000s pop rock into a quote-unquote pop-punk lens. And I'm not fighting that. If people see it that way, that's fine. But just being an 80s, 90s kid, pop-punk was something more specific. Blink-182 is more pop-punk. Like, they actually, like, at least presented themselves specifically as punkers, not like, I know there's all the Dead Tooth guys out there that would be like, Blink-182 is not punk, Green Day is not punk, but like they clearly had punk influences only, whereas Relient K had many, and obviously a punk band can have lots of different influences, but they wear their punk influences on their sleeve. Relient K didn't wear their punk influences on their sleeve. They'd say like, yeah, we like MXPX, and we like Weezer, and we like Beach Boys. Like, they were more a pop rock band to me.
Sure.
So when they started putting all of this piano, sorry, I took a long way around the neighborhood to get back to my point, but when they started putting all this piano onto this album, and that becoming the leading way Relient K would be from then on, once they became a 5-piece, it made complete sense to me. It's actually funny, when 5 Score came out, the sound felt so different to me that I was actually a little turned off. That's why I never bought a copy of 5 Score at the time. I was happy with my MP3s for the first time with the Relient K album, because like, this still sounds like Relient K, but I wasn't crazy about the production.
Right.
And I know now, like, technically, Mark Lee Townsend wasn't the producer on that album, right, so it kind of makes sense, and we kind of know some of the background on the label pushing them on that album.
Yeah.
But just the sound of that album felt so different to me, whereas felt like a natural evolution.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with that.
5 Score's the original collapsible lung.
Oh, no. So you're not a super huge fan of this song.
I like it.
You
I
like
like it, but it's too much of wallpaper to me. It just sounds too much like other songs, like, I think mainly This Week the Trend. I think mainly I like This Week the Trend more than this song, and This Week the Trend feels like more of a showstopper to me than Who I Am Hates Who I've Been, which is, I know, surprising, probably a controversial statement, but they're the same theme. They're both Bad Friend Thiessen songs.
Sure, yeah.
And good for this song that it's way bigger than This Week the Trend. I know that. I'm just saying, personally, in my headcanon.
Yeah, for me, this is more of like it feels a little bit more of a sister song to like I So Hate Consequences, because just musically, and it's actually funny because whereas usually I don't have a lot to say about the music, like I'm really, really attracted to just the sound of this song and the production of this piece, and it's like I could not think of a lot to say about the lyrics because it is just like it's like your quintessential Bad Friend Thiessen song.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't have a lot to say about the lyrics. Are great, they're beautiful, but I didn't have a lot to say about that. I was just rocking out so hard while I did my research this week. Like, I feel like you can't like play the song and not play air drums along to it. I was also singing Who I Am Hates Billy Corrigan instead. I don't know why.
Why do you hate Billy Corrigan?
I don't. Happy birthday, Billy. It's also his birthday.
Oh, his birthday is on St. Patrick's Day?
It is. I wonder if that's why his middle name is Patrick. William Patrick Corrigan.
Maybe.
My dad's best friend was born on St. Patrick's Day. Oh, I gotta send a text out. But that just reminded me. And his name is Patrick because he was born on St. Patrick's Day.
Right. That's good. I know I just gave you the Danny wasn't listening tone of voice, but I absolutely was listening. So you mentioned I Still Hate Consequences, and that reminds me that this song is part of the trilogy of hate, as I called it.
Right.
And it's crazy that there's 2 songs on with the word hate in the title. It just feels odd, you know what I mean? It's not really that bad. I'm not saying like a parent wagging their finger and saying hate is a strong word. Did your parents ever, when you said you hated something, did your parents ever look you in the eye and say something along the lines of, the word hate literally means you want that person to die?
No, not in those specific terms. They did not. They definitely were like, there's harsher words and more friendly words, and maybe, do you really hate it? Like, maybe stay away from that one. It wasn't like a drilled into me thing, but I definitely had friends who were like, hate is a bad word. And it's like, I mean, my mom told me that sucks was a bad word and crap was like a swear word and things like that I've learned later aren't true, but Right. No, hate was just like, it was a strong word. My mom would say it's a strong word, not that it was, and to just maybe think about whether you actually hated it or if you just disliked it.
Well, my parents definitely, my mom at least, my mom definitely didn't want me just throwing the word hate around. But it is like, it's like the word literally, which I literally use all the time. It's like these words become less powerful because we overuse them.
Yeah.
Like people started...
You become desensitized.
You become desensitized and swears. Like, especially our generation, like, swearing isn't as bad. And I think over time, each swears are slowly gonna, like... Because now no one cares if you say damn or anything like that.
We saw a car with a bumper sticker today that looked like a hand giving the middle finger and said, F you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that they're allowed to...
It was very clever. It was the hand was made out of the letters of F-U-C-K-U.
The U was, like, really tall to be the finger. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine, like, can you imagine being a kid in the 90s and seeing something like that? Because I can't.
Right.
Like, I feel like that was very, like, you couldn't even have t-shirts that had certain suggestive things on them, or, like, parents would be outraged or whatever, Like, I can't imagine having, like, I think the most rude bumper sticker they had was the Calvin and Hobbes Calvin peeing thing on whatever,
Yeah,
like,
if you were Bart Simpson and you wore a t-shirt that said down with homework to school, the next thing you know,
Exactly.
there'd be a riot at the school.
Exactly.
So I just remember my mom not wanting me to use, just like your mom, although she used other tactics for it than your mom used more, like, the thing is, you were a very loving child and you looked up to your parents. And I certainly looked up to my parents as well, but I was more rebellious, as you know.
Yes.
So my mom used other tactics other than just honesty
Right.
to get me to do things. Which is probably fine, because I probably also didn't react to the honesty if I felt like I was entitled to use a word like hate or sucks. But then my mom would say those are basically swears. So my mom would say, and I know that this isn't just my mom making this up, this was like one of those things that gets passed around by parents. And it's something you'll probably find in a meme of of stuff parents say. That if you say the word hate as a kid, like, I hate my teacher, then your mom would look you in the eye and say, the word hate in the dictionary means you want that person to die. Do you actually want your teacher to die? And then ideally the kid would be like, no, I don't want
But little Danny said yes, didn't he?
Little Danny said yes.
Of course he did.
And then the other one is to say to your kids...
That's so harsh. No, my parents did not use, like, strong arm parenting. It was
Right.
like, they got off very easy with me. I remember this one time my mom told me that... And I don't even know why, and she does not recall telling me this, but she told me that, like, swearing offended Jesus. And I, never swore. I didn't swear until I got to college because I thought that was true. And then I wised up and was like, wait a minute.
Jesus isn't at college with me. Jesus is back at my parents' house.
This isn't anywhere, like, written down that swearing offends Jesus. This is a lie. And then, like, I started swearing. But that's more because I was more ingrained in it. I did not grow up in a home with swearing or anything like that. So suddenly going to college, and we went to a very liberal art school. Mm-hmm. So the teacher swore,
Right.
all of the other kids swore, and I just ended up picking it up by living in that sort of an environment for so long.
For shame. Just kidding. So it's not actually a big deal that Relient K has 2 songs on this album with the word hate in the title, but I'd like to imagine absolutely that somewhere there's a Christian kid who probably at a Christian bookstore, maybe at a mainstream record store, handed the record to their parents and said, this is a Christian album. And they looked at the back and saw the word hate on there twice and said, no, you may not have this album. I guarantee that happened. I know for a fact somewhere in the world there is a person.
I'm sure.
Somewhere in the world there is a person whose parents took away their Five Iron Frenzy CDs. And this is still back in the late 90s when Five Iron Frenzy was like, less progressive and liberal than they may be perceived by, more right-leaning Christians now. Mm-hmm. This is still when they only had 3 albums out. And this kid went on the Frenzy boards, which is what they called the online community for Five Iron Frenzy in the 90s. And he was like, I need help because my mom took away my Five Iron Frenzy CDs because they thanked Less Than Jake in the thank yous. They thanked secular bands.
Whoa!
In the thank you liner notes.
Whoa!
So his mom took away his Five Iron Frenzy CDs.
Whoa!
Because they were friends with secular bands.
Hardcore.
So I guarantee there's some parent out there who looked at the titles of I So Hate Consequences and Who I Am Hates Who I've Been and said, the word hate on here twice? No, those are swears, and didn't let them keep the CD.
Parents, you gotta be cooler. You gotta be cooler. Any parents listening, you gotta be cooler, guys.
And then the cap for the trilogy of hate is I Hate Christmas Parties.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Who doesn't?
Yeah. How many other bands have this many songs with the word hate in the title? Maybe Slayer? I don't know.
Probably a lot. Maybe the Hate Bombs? I don't know.
Hate Bombs?
Oh, sorry. That's a very local Orlando band. Apologies.
Oh. I never even heard of them. The only local Orlando band I knew was the Supervillains.
Right.
They were the big weed smoking ska band in the area.
Talk about mom's not letting you listen into that music. So I just want to bring up the Hard Rock Live show for a second, because at 1 minute, 23 seconds, the camera cuts to the audience and it's from below, and it is a close-up of a girl's boobs bouncing as she jumps up and down singing along. And then after that, Teeson's earpiece falls out, and then he has to scramble to get it back in. Probably because he's distracted by a girl's boobs bouncing.
So this Hard Rock Live show Jessica was at, for anyone who's listening for the first time, it was 2005, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2005.
My first Relient K show.
Yep. So at what time does it happen?
1:23.
1:23. So here I am at 1:20.
Which, if this was a good Charlotte, you'd be like, yeah.
There it is.
If this was a good Charlotte or a Simple Plan or really any other band, yeah, sure, teen girl boobs bouncing. Why not? But the fact that it's Relient K is just hilarious.
Yeah. I'm watching Teeson struggle with his
earpiece.
Yeah, his monitor. That's funny. So this is, by the way, the second to last time we'll specifically come to watch the Hard Rock Live 2005 videos.
So sad.
Because to summarize, we've done all these songs. The One I'm Waiting For, Who I Am Hates Who I've Been, High of 75, Witch to Bury, Be My Escape, and I Still Hate Consequences.
Did we do Witch to Bury?
Yes, we did.
Oops. I mean, of course we did.
Whatever. We can do it again
sure.
in season 2 of Sadie Hawkins Pod.
But, I think you mean season 3. Won't that mark a new season when we actually get done with all of the... we'll get into it later.
Okay. So, yeah, this version is also... We're kind of getting ahead because normally we do the live videos later, but as long as we're here, I just wanted to mention, after I did my YouTube research, this is kind of the slower... It's still fast, obviously. But this is a slightly slower, more grindy pace than what is found on the main album or what's found on the 2009 section of the main live album. This is actually a slower live version that the band played.
I also want to talk about the Live at Capitol, because I have the same note about that performance that I had on I So Hate Consequences, where when you slow the song down, you lose that same feeling with that slower breakdown when you strip away the song. Mm-hmm. Which is what I said about I So Hate Consequences, is that you give that really powerful message in that slowed down part, but when the whole thing's slow, it's just you lose that.
Right. I wonder if that's... Now, the Capitol Record live version is different from the acoustic version found on Punk Goes Acoustic and on Bird and the B-Sides. Yeah. Just to confirm for anyone who... I kind of knew that, but I kind of didn't really pay attention until I really did my YouTube research this week.
Because Live at Capitol was recorded around the time of Five Score, just post Five Score.
Right.
Right. And so they had already recorded. This was supposed to be for the Apathetic.
I'm actually curious. I wish I should have tried to message John Schneck to ask him. I'm curious if maybe we'll find this out for part 2. I'm curious if the Apathetic EP was maybe recorded after the Johns joined the band, because Brian left very quickly into Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We have a very rare performance of this song at Cornerstone 04, where Brian's playing. It's still the 4-piece band, and it's before the album's out, and the crowd has no reaction to one of the main singles, one of what will become one of their top 2 songs on streaming in the modern age. It's a brand new song. The crowd has no reaction. But Brian left right as this album came out. It's equivalent to the way Ethan left when Collapsible Lung came out.
Right.
So immediately Warren has replaced Brian. And then there's this very short period where there's not a lot of promotion going on per se, where they're now a 4-piece with Warren, and Schneck hasn't joined, because they did a small tour that I figured out later when I asked Schneck, and I was like, were you at these shows? They did this small under the radar tour to specific cities that they love to play in, and Boston was one of them, to celebrate the release of Mm-hmm. And Brian was already gone. And I remember my friend Johnny being like, pointing at the new bassist and saying, that's the guy from Ace Troubleshooter. And we had no idea that was happening, because it's still just 2004. There's no big things going on.
The crowds when this song is played live, also just everybody is into this. Yeah. And this is what not only really makes me, in the age of a pandemic, miss live shows, but what really makes me miss Relient K live shows is that, especially when you get to that sort of softer breakdown, that everybody sings along, and you just hear everybody, singing along to that really pretty soft portion of the song.
Right. So I danced around my point before. But my question is, when did they get in the studio and record the acoustic tracks for the Apathetic EP? Because was Schneck involved or not? You know what I mean? Because here Schneck's for sure involved. And in my personal opinion, the acoustic version, we didn't get into this with our guest, but the acoustic version on the Live at Capitol videos, I think, is superior to the acoustic version on Bird and the B-Sides.
Agreed.
And Punk Goes Acoustic.
Yeah.
Yeah, this version is much nicer. Obviously, I don't know. I was going to say, they're in a nicer studio, but I'm like, well, I literally don't know what studio they recorded the would-be Apathetic EP version.
Right.
But whatever. It's clear that they put a lot of planning into the Live at Capitol show, because there's all of this thought and all of these specially arranged songs. So there just feels like a lot more arrangement and thought into how they would perform this acoustically for this version. Whereas the other version just feels like they not slapped together, but they did it in the sort of natural, just make an acoustic version of a song.
Right. Yeah, I forgot to mention, that's what, if you heard a crash earlier, it's because it fell down. This song is on the fan-curated vinyl. It is on side A, track 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. These are probably their 4 biggest
Yeah, you've got Sadie Hawkins Dance, Be My Escape, Who I Am Hates Who I've Been, and then Deathbed.
Right, and obviously Deathbed's in kind of a different bracket when you say these are their 4 biggest songs, but, Deathbed is...
Yeah,
it's got the biggest cult within Relient K fandom itself. I mean, I don't think any songs are specifically bigger in a real quantifiable way than those 4. These are quantifiably huge songs.
Yeah.
Like, you can look at streaming numbers, you can look at Billboard, and these 4 songs are bigger than anything else in their catalog.
So we're going to go ahead and take our break now. And
Yes.
when we come back, we're going to talk with our guests. So next week, we're going to do the usual deep dive that I do because since this is such a massive song, the deep dive was really, really long.
And we want to give everything, because there's lots of good stuff. Just giving you a preview of some of it. Save some other things, so I won't know, but yeah.
So next week, we're going to have the deep dive, the
music video we'll talk about.
Yeah, and part 2 of our guest segment.
Right, because first we're going to have the first half. We had a almost 3-hour conversation with them.
Yeah.
So we're splitting it across these 2 episodes. So we'll be back after this. And I'll cut that part out.
If you enjoy Sadie Hawkins Pod, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and interact with the show by calling our voicemail line 402-95-SADIE.
You can send an email to sadiehawkinspod@gmail.com and visit our Instagram and Twitter, which are both at sadiehawkinspod.
You can also visit sadiehawkinspod.com for the link to our TeePublic store for shirts, mugs, and stickers, including 2 brand new designs. Following in the history of all of Relient K's logo parody merch, we have a Chick-fil-A parody design.
And to prove to everyone that we are in fact the most punk rock podcast, we have a new Black Flag logo parody. Something that's original and that we could really call our own for once.
We also want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/sadiehawkinspod. Jarrett, Eric, Joel, Connor, Michael, Helen, Samantha, Roxanne, Jimmy Pod, This Might Be a Podcast, Tucker, David, and Brady.
You can sign up at our Patreon for bonus episodes, which include us reviewing the songs from KS for Karaoke and reading through the Complex Infrastructure book.
Ooh.
Treat yourself right in 2021 with Sadie Hawkins Pod, the door to a happy, healthy life. And one more note to our patrons before we get to our guest segment is that we're releasing the full uncut conversation with Punk Goes Pod over on the Patreon feed. So go check that feed out now instead of listening to the whole thing twice. So I would say welcome back, but really, I guess it's you welcoming us back, or now we're reciprocating. Punk Goes Pod, Sam and Emma. I got your names right?
You did.
Yes.
Okay.
You're so awkward whenever you introduce guests.
I don't really know how to introduce guests. Once we get over that hump, then we just talk. It's like,
Exactly.
I gotta hey, everybody. I don't think of it as a show, you know what I mean? But there's this weird pomp and circumstance about introducing people that it's got to be like, hey, welcome to the show. We're all here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
It's much easier when it's just me and Jessica because it just feels like a conversation that we know people are listening in on. So
Exactly.
yeah.
I think I've definitely repeated this either on our podcast or maybe on yours. I'm sorry if I have, but we went around to friend of the pod, Richard S. He's place, and he was just he was cooking us breakfast. It was very wholesome and lovely. I was doing my work. Sam and I were talking about just something to do with pop culture. He's like, I feel like I'm listening to an episode of your podcast, which was such a compliment. But also, I totally go, as soon as a third party is in, it's just oh no, how do we make this seamless?
This is how the sausage is made.
Exactly. Just getting premium content for free, but no, that's fine.
Welcome back to our sausage podcast, by the way.
Exactly. It's a sausage cast.
So to catch anyone up, just in case, we were on your show talking about Manic Monday by the Bangles and the Relient K cover that was on Punko's 80s, because on your show, you talk about a different song each week from the Punk Goes Ellipses series by Fearless Records. And this week, we're having you on for Who I Am, Hates Who I've Been, because on Punk Goes Acoustic 2, is Relient K has, I looked at Jessica just for reassurance that I'm getting all these facts correct.
I'm not even.
Better of the pod.
Who I Am Hates Who I've Been. The acoustic version is on the Punk Goes Acoustic Volume 2. Relient K fans probably know more specifically that it's on the Bird and the B-Sides album, which was it's half of a new album that they recorded at the time and half of a B-side collection. So before we get into the covers, the idea was you guys are the covers podcast. So we're having and we were going to do this crossover, and to sort of set it apart from last time, we're going to go through the covers together instead of just me and Jess. But before we get into that, what are your thoughts on this song in general? Did you have any thoughts? Did you listen, aside from the acoustic one that's on your list, did you listen to the original as well?
We did.
Yes.
Okay.
And watch the video as
We
well.
did watch.
Superhero origin story of girl with the fringe.
Yeah, fringe girl.
Yeah, fringe girl. Bangs, I believe they call them in over in your side of the world.
Do you want to kick off the discussion on our end?
Yeah, look, it's a really cool song. I am not surprised, but like almost impressed with how much this has obviously influenced teenagers of the time. I'm shocked that this was not played over a top 10 anime betrayals video.
Not top 10 one. But I didn't even save in my list that I shared with you guys all of the anime music videos. There are hundreds and hundreds of them. And any character that betrays another character and feels bad about it later has at least 2 different anime music videos set to them.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, I love it. Look, we'll get to my favorite one at the end, but yeah, that's I'm just like, I think that territory was more reserved for Linkin Park and Disturbed and Breaking Benjamin.
Yeah, true.
Was the top 10 anime betrayals. But yeah, I think the acoustic cover, because one of my biggest gripes with acoustic covers is just when it's the song, the chords, and an acoustic guitar, but they actually put a lot of effort into it, and it's not just what's his name on a guitar.
Matt Thiessen.
Matt Thiessen. I couldn't remember if it was Matt or like something else starting with an A. I don't know why.
With an A.
Yeah, like Andrew Thiessen.
You could be like getting your wires crossed, because last time we spoke with Relient K, no, not Relient. We did this last time with Sadie. My God, it's a public holiday here, so forgive. I'm just like on holiday mode. Last time we talked about the fact that Matt Thiessen had worked with Andrew McMahon on a Jack's Mannequin record. Right. And yeah, like it's interesting, since we had that conversation, I have been listening to Relient K within the context of like comparing them to that same style and sound, and it's one of those things, this feels like they were a real missed opportunity for me, because I would have, within the context of, if you like Andrew McMahon, you'll love these guys. Like I would have loved them at the time, I think. Yeah. But I just missed the boat. But
we only had so much data, like internet usage, like dial up. You could only get so much.
There was only so many things I could download off LimeWire before I ruined our family computer.
yeah. Frostwire.
So like for me, it's funny, like listening to this, I'm having very vivid memories of listening to friends of mine singing along to this at some party, but I never connected the dots. I was like, oh, cool song. Like, I know it's Relient K. I don't know which one. Mm-hmm. Like, just hearing that chorus, I was like, okay, this makes sense. But for me, I think what I love about it is just how, first of all, like how verbose it is. I just really love the way that Matt sort of delivers, like just over the top, sort of very florid sort of lyrics. And it does sort of have a, like within the context of the song where he's sort of going over like, oh no, like I've done these horrible things. Like I love that he sort of like almost overcorrects himself, like with his train of thought as he's speaking. Like it's just very earnest, and it's something that, especially as a teen, like I love that kind of, not even necessarily wordplay, but just sort of over delivering with your lyrics, like putting, like packing them with stuff.
Like every syllable, there's no moment left. There's no breath to be taken. Like everything is as full as it can be. That's
exactly it. Like it's just very maximal. And I, especially as a teen, like I favored myself. It's like, oh, I'm very sort of literary and I love to read and I love poetry. And even though like I kept a journal, but like I was never a decent writer by any stretch. But I just always have gravitated to bands that do sort of deliver on the lyrics side of things. Like I always notice lyrics in songs before like very sort of subtle musical elements, that kind of thing. And then by way of the Punk Goes acoustic cover, similar to what you were saying, Sam, like I love that they gave it the level of care that it deserved. It wasn't just, oh yeah, let's just play it exactly the same but unplug everything. Like
which I guess it could be because this wasn't necessarily done for Punk Goes acoustic.
Yeah
it was done for something else, but like definitely within the top 5 of the acoustic songs we've done so far. Easily.
It's just like, of course they're going to treat their own music with care, but to sort of take it up a notch from this is exactly the same except there's no drums and there's no electric guitars. And like they do add little drum fills and they just sort of give it its own sort of emotional like context outside of the original cover. So yeah, hell yeah on both counts for us.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I'd say hell yeah. Did we do a hell yeah or yeah nah last time for?
I think we did.
Yeah. So it'd be obviously hell
Hell
yeah
yeah.
for both versions.
Nice.
It was funny that before Sam mentioned that how you appreciate that there's more going on than just the singer and an acoustic guitar, because in preparing today, it was actually Jessica's idea. She was like, we should listen to as much of Punk Goes Acoustic 2 as we can, because neither of us had ever heard that comp. So we listened to that comp, and at one point we were in the car and some other song came on later in the album. I can't remember what it was. I don't even know if I looked to see who it was at all. But basically Jessica said, this is the only other song than Relient K that has other instruments in it. Like most of the songs on Punk Goes Acoustic 2 are just one guitar and one singer, and like Relient K had a full acoustic band and some other band had a full acoustic band.
And it's like there's a real you opened your mouth and then I jumped in.
And I was just going to say, when Matt Thiessen's not on pianos, Relient K is not lacking in guitars. So
they have guitars coming out the wazoo.
Guitars are plenty.
I think like for me, like that's a really good point in that it almost feels at times like the Punk Goes acoustic stuff, it's really catering to like those completionist fans who are like, okay, I need to hear every single iteration of the song ever recorded.
Yeah.
Which there's like that in itself is valid. Like I totally get wanting to hear every take on it. But yeah, you really do start to notice when it is just a full comp of one guitar, one singer. It's just like, okay, but what else can you show me? And so, yeah, something like Relient K, how they treated Who I Am, like it's, yeah, it just sort of, it takes it up a step from like meeting the bare minimum of what you expect from a comp like that.
And I'm just going to say, if anyone's coming into this, and I mean, I'm sure plenty of people haven't heard us, but the Daphne Loves Derby episode, which we got kind of, not in trouble, but like, lead singer Jason Call like responded to that episode. I also have a huge rant about the album art for Punk Goes Acoustic 2, which just grinds my gears so badly. I'm just looking at it now and I'm getting angry.
It's not great album art at all.
I didn't.
Most of them aren't, but like for some reason that's just the worst of the worst.
It's
depressing. I mean, Punk Goes Crunk is a little iffy as well.
It's more than a little iffy.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, Punk Goes Crunk is that's a whole another can of worms.
Yeah.
I feel
that was one of the first things I mentioned you guys about when you started a podcast. I was like, when you get talk with, and you've talked about it enough on the show, but it's basically like crunk is a specific subgenre of rap music, but they just liked the pun Punk Goes Crunk, and they didn't fill it out with actual crunk songs. They filled it out with some rap songs, and in some cases like Rihanna's, that's not even a rap song, that's not even a hip-hop song, and it makes it extra racist because they're like, oh, black artist, crunk. I'm like, oh my god, no.
Well,
You're so
I
off
think
base.
I think the more egregious example is the Men in Black song is on it, which we liked the song, and then we're like, oh wait, there's like 2 actual crunk songs on the entire compilation, I think, and the rest, it's just to get the pun, the rhyme.
And it's very much like a product of its time, because it's sort of like, yeah, we're going to go out and get crunk. Like, that's exactly what that means, right? Which,
But I
no,
could-
it's not.
I could see Fearless being so excited because for the first time they could rhyme punk with something.
Yeah.
I was just remembering there's an actual crunk punk band called Whole Wheat Bread. They're an all black pop punk band.
Oh my god.
They're from Florida. They're from like
nice.
They call themselves a Dirty South punk band. They sound like a pre self-unentitled pop punk band before pop punk sort of started going in more directions with like Paramore and stuff, like a Good Charlotte, Simple Plan, earlier Blink-182 pop punk band. And they're not even on the comp. Like they could have, there's a crunk punk band and they didn't pick them.
Exactly.
They didn't get them on there. Yeah.
It's tricky because like we, like, full disclosure, like the Punk Goes Twitter account, they follow us. Like we haven't like we haven't reached out and been like, hey guys, like let's collab. But we know that they know that we exist. And so it's hard because there are times where we're just like, what the hell are you doing with this?
Like we can't just always be like, we love it, because then that's boring.
And also because like we're not getting any money to do this. So like absolutely we've got to tell you what we think. But at the same time, as we learned with Jason Cole, like people do listen to these things. And so like it's very fun to just be like, like they did this really crap job on this. But like if we do ever want to approach them in the future, we have to sort of keep in check.
Right.
But yeah, there've been quite a few missteps along the Punk Goes journey. And it's just like, guys, like what are you doing? But it does seem like they have more of like even just a marketing budget these days. Like they're able to sort of do slightly more high production things with what they're doing, which I think is steering them in a bit of a better direction than the earlier comps, just in terms of how they rolled them out. And but yeah. If you're listening, we are very open to collaborating with you. So.
We would like to get sponsored. We will become the official Fearless Records podcast if need be.
Well, Jessica had one other note about the Punk Goes acoustic volume 2.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I feel like somebody over there has a good sense of humor, because right after Who I Am Hates Who I've Been is an Anti-Flag song, and they're like, who would Jesus bomb? Who would Jesus kill? Like right after Relient K.
Just like as the angriest like Bush era Green Day style punk.
And there are Christian punk bands that would actually have maybe not that strong, but yeah, Fiber and Frenzy has had lyrics that are just about up to that same level of like, you know, pointing the finger inward towards Christianity and like, you know, and politically accusing political idolatry and Christianity. So I'm just saying, just for the sake of just mentioning other Christian bands, MXPX for sure, although their stuff's a little bit more subdued, like they're not as directly accusing Christianity, but it's clear. The subtexts are clear on some of the songs that they sing later, where it's like, you know, the problems with certain systems and stuff.
I like that you just like Christian music well actually me.
I wasn't Christian music. I know I was well actually Anti-Flag.
Yes. That's like, and that's the sort of like for me, because I don't have a hell of a lot of exposure to Christian pop punk, Christian punk, that kind of thing. But like some of the most interesting works, like I was driving home from visiting my parents the other day. So a good 200-kilometer drive on a Sunday afternoon. And I was listening to Brand New Eyes by Paramore. And that was like again, friend of the pod, Richard S. He was like, he tweeted the other day that like Blink-182's self-titled album, like it deserves so much critical acclaim for just how, like, it's sort of a powder keg of an album. Like that's where the band, like things were quite tense and like it sort of manifested itself in the sound. And that's the same way with Brand New Eyes, because I think Hayley was going through her own sort of reckoning with just her faith and like what it meant to be a Christian and like what it meant to other people when you say you're a Christian, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's super interesting just listening to her sort of grappling with that. But then at the same time, that ultimately led to like a lot of tension within the band itself, because some of them were like, oh, don't really want to be questioning this kind of stuff because I'm quite devout in my faith. Like, what are we doing here?
And they're also
sort of spiraled.
They're also from the South, aren't they? Tennessee or something, aren't they?
Yeah. So that's like, it's really interesting to look at Christian music outside of just the very positive stuff. Like, you can still wrestle with like what you believe and like grapple with some of the things that seem inconsistent or don't quite make sense, or like what happens when like idolatry sort of takes over, that kind of thing. And you can still produce art that doesn't cancel you out of the religion at all. Like, it's just your thinking, like you're being a thinking person and sort of questioning your place. And yeah, ultimately it still leads to growth in some degree. But
yeah,
that is my book report on Paramore.
A+.
Thank you.
Well, so yeah, you guys mentioned before, but I always assumed that I thought this acoustic track was on the Apathetic EP. It's not. Apparently Who I Am Hates Who I've Been has its own Wikipedia page, which is one of the few Relient K songs with its own Wikipedia page. And it says here that the acoustic version was recorded for the Apathetic EP, but it didn't make it on there. And then it ended up on Punk Goes, and it ended up on Bird and the B-Sides, which makes sense. But I'm also, there's no citation for that, so I'm not really entirely sure if that is true. I'm wondering, because there are a couple of acoustic. So Apathetic EP was an EP to promote. Relient K was on this trajectory of where they'd have an album and an EP side by side, and this album, and it's probably the last time they did that.
Yeah,
I don't think there was an EP for 5 Score, not in the way there had been. There were singles for 5 Score, the album, but not these EPs. So anyway, I guess it makes sense that they could have recorded the acoustic Who I Am Hates Who I've Been in the same sessions, but I just don't know. I don't have proof. I don't see proof that that's absolutely true. Yeah. Like, we didn't find an interview where someone said that, but it makes sense if that's the case.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Because there's acoustic versions of Be My Escape and Which to Bury, Us or the Hatchet, and Overthinking on there. Yeah, which are other songs from the same album. Yeah. I didn't realize. Oh, so go ahead.
Sorry. No. Last time we spoke, you gave us some homework to listen to.
Oh, right.
What was it called again?
Forget Not Slow Down.
That's right. So for some reason, infuriatingly, Forget and Not Slow Down is not available on Spotify over here.
Right.
So I instead pivoted and just listened to and thoroughly enjoyed it, like super good. And then I think I listened to a couple of tracks off Forget and Not Slow Down just on YouTube, but you managed to have a listen.
So I had a listen on YouTube.
Yes.
Wasn't the best quality, and I was coming in listening to that after I just wrote a ranking of all of King Diamond's albums. And I don't know if you're familiar with King Diamond, but that's a juxtaposition between the two.
Yeah.
Just to say the least. But no, that was like it was one of those ones where it sounds like the recording, not the recording itself, but like the release on YouTube sounded like it had been recorded underwater a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, it's still like, it didn't interfere with my enjoyment of it. Like, it was still, I could have definitely seen myself enjoying that as a teenager.
For sure.
Faux show.
So
the sound, the production, if you got a clearer copy of it, the production on Forget Not Slow Down is a lot more organic than is super polished, like very deliberate, specific guitar tones. I think like very inspired by what was happening with pop punk and rock at the time with Blink-182, and even like Tom DeLonge and stuff, like him sort of pushing what pop punk guitar could be at the time. And Matt Thiessen had a Tom DeLonge signature on stage at this time. So, but then by Forget Not Slow Down, they pivot into this very specific thing where there's like, it sounds more like you're in the room with them sometimes. And there's a lot of like string instruments and more reverb. There's almost like that same kind of drumming that people hate on Saint Anger. with like that loose that loose reverb heavy thing. It's like they took that bait, but Forget Not Slow Down took that sort of idea and did it perfectly for Forget Not Slow Down, because the drums even have this like slightly more organic, loose, reverby sound, but not as bad as Saint Anger.
Yeah, because those drums sounded like Lars Ulrich was hitting an empty Coke can. Yeah. Like that snare drum sound is just.
Oh man, if Richard ends up arriving earlier than we expect, we can just get him to do a quick.
Oh yeah, because he's a Saint Anger apologist.
Yeah. So if we happen to hear a knock on the door in this recording, it's our friend Richard showing up, and we'll just get him to spit some bars about why Saint Anger is actually a great album and how dare you. And
why Jar Jar Binks is a good Star Wars character as well.
But
he has great taste. Well,
he has impeccable taste. I defer to him a lot on things. I'll listen to an album and be like, "What do you think about this?"
I need to know what to think about this,
exactly.
But I don't quite
Please
yet. But tell me, what should I think about this?
But no, he is a good egg.
So, do you guys have any other thoughts on the song or anything before we get into like the list of covers and videos I sent over?
I think we've mostly covered it. I think off the bat, Sam really sort of nailed it in like just how much this song resonated with people. I love that. Like, it's always rewarding to revisit something that had such a big reach at the time and sort of catch up on what we missed at the time.
I'm just smiling thinking about some of the stuff we're going to get into.
I know, it's going to be
one thing I meant to mention, I just realized, is I didn't know this, but on the Wikipedia page for this song, it says Matt Thiessen wrote this song in Australia in light of a feud with Brian Pittman, the bassist. The lyrics reflect remorse for his behavior as well as pleas for forgiveness. So that's interesting. And two things going on there. So first of all, when we do our podcast, there's a suite of songs or canon of Relient K songs that are on the theme of Matt Thiessen being a bad friend. Like, it's a super common theme, and we call it Bad Friend Thiessen. It's like a sub character. It's like an invisible character of our podcast. So this is so this is, I think this must be like the prime Bad Friend Thiessen song, because it was on MTV and it was shortly on the radio, and it's a known song outside of just Relient K fandom. So this has got to be like the number one. But then I don't even necessarily hear in the song that it's about like two friends necessarily. Like, it seems like it's a broad topic, and he probably wrote it that way on purpose, so it would affect or touch anyone. But like, thinking that it's about like two bandmates, two bros, like having it out backstage in Australia, it's like such a specific background for what seems like a much more broad song.
Look, Australia has that effect on people. Like, we just turn on each other and
we turn, but then like we turn back pretty quickly.
Yeah,
I feel
then
like.
You crack open a VB and all is forgiven. So
it's breakup songs between band members. It's that and Don't Speak by No Doubt.
Ooh, that is and
it's both involving a bassist.
I like to think that, not in that like because it's a nice thing to think, but to me, like, the bassist just sort of wears a lot of like the rubbish from like the lead singer, unless you're in Fall Out Boy and then it's the other way around. But like,
it's because everyone understands nobody wants to be the bassist.
Yeah, but like they're like the pulse of the band. Like, they sort of just roll with the punches. And so, yeah, it totally makes sense that, poor Brian is all I have to say. But I think like I read the lyrics because as soon as I saw Bad Friend Thiessen, I was like, okay, I'm on board. But I could also see it being someone just grappling with like a past version of himself, like, and not in the sense of like, I don't like the way I treated other people, just like I don't like the way I treated myself, or like I don't like.
It's like Dark Link from Zelda, right? Fights his shadow self.
Yeah, or Scott Pilgrim, but all
those videos probably exist on YouTube. I just didn't save them to the list.
I mean, Shadow the Hedgehog does this.
Yes, I did save. And inevitably, if I'm doing the research and there's a huge amount of tribute videos to TV shows and video games and stuff, I'll save the first couple, and then same with acoustic covers. I just start skipping over them, and I'm just like looking for the ones that stand out. So I think Shadow the Hedgehog got in there early before I started judging and clicking off too quickly.
I'm glad Shadow made the cut, because that is prime content right there.
Do you know Shadow the Hedgehog?
I do not. I'm thinking it's just an evil version of Sonic.
It's a misunderstood version of Sonic.
A misunderstood version of Sonic with a gun.
Yeah.
He has a gun. And it's not like a cute like laser. It's like an AK-47 or something. It's Sonic with a gun. So I guess we tick off Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, look.
I was laughing so much at Shadow the Hedgehog before.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
So how about so I got a couple of videos of Relient K themselves. There's the Live at Capitol series where they were in the Capitol Records building, the famous one here in Hollywood.
Ooh.
And they recorded a couple other acoustic versions of things, including this song. And this is from the session. This is from after the album After. This is from the 5 score period when they were signed to Capitol Records. So there is an acoustic version. You guys can check that out. Let's keep moving. You guys can check that out later. But it is like a little brighter and fuller than what they did for which kind of makes sense. I'm curious if I can find this out from the band member from John Schneck that we talked to, if the acoustic version on Punk Goes was recorded when they were still a 4-piece, or if it was recorded when they had the full 5-member band. Because because the Live at Capitol version is definitely the 5-member band, and it's fuller, it's a little richer. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Sorry, there's clattering on our end because our cat is destroying everything. Anyway.
So you guys watch. Oh, go ahead. What's that?
I hadn't even considered that. I think just because, super simplistic, but the acoustic version, I just assume there's fewer personnel working on it, so I didn't even think about who
all the band being involved.
Yeah. But no, that's cool.
I saw you guys watched. I had on my list a Warped Tour 2011 performance where Justin York from Paramore was filling in for Matt Hoops.
Yes. So it's funny because, again, going back to Paramore, of course they have touring members, but I just didn't even think of it because, I don't know, for me, touring members, I have to sort of be, super duper, versed in a band to, for instance, Jason White, Jason Freese for Green Day. I'm yep, I know them, blah, blah, blah.
Super weird one. The lead singer of Yellow Card is the touring guitarist for Newfound Glory, but he's not the studio guitarist.
That's cool.
The last I heard, which was a year or so ago.
Yeah. Nice. Well, yeah, because they're no longer touring, are they? Yellow Card?
No,
but anyway. So yeah, it's. So for me, first of all, it was a surprise because I hadn't heard much about Justin York to begin with, but yeah, he's Taylor York's older brother, so that makes perfect sense that given the Paramore members' background and their religious upbringing, they would have crossed paths with Relient K, and then Justin would have toured with them. It's interesting. It's a fit that it makes perfect sense to me. And yeah, I always love just seeing those crossovers between bands that are of an equal sort of standing to each other, and just sort of having fun with each other's music and sort of vibing off each other in that sense. I always love watching that kind of dynamic happen. But yeah. So that was my book report on the Warped Tour.
It's kind of it was. I mean, it was filmed from someone's cell phone, so
right.
It always makes me laugh, just because I remember when I was younger being oh man, I should really film this song because I love it so much and it's so cool to see it live. It never turns out the way that you expect it to.
Right.
Someone who's right up against the mic, da-na-na, just completely off key, so you can sort of catch glimpses of what the members are doing with their actual vocals, but it's usually just someone singing way off key right next to the speaker.
I can't remember which one it was of these covers. it was definitely a church group one. And it was people in the, like, whoever was filming it was laughing with their friends. And then you could hear someone come up and be like, you shouldn't be talking during the performance.
That's so mean. I remember. So sad.
I don't remember which one it was, though.
So yeah, let's get into the covers officially.
Beautiful.
There were a couple of karaoke videos that I found.
Yeah.
I found here and there with some of their like middle big songs, maybe Anchorage, full team band with church show female singer. Is that the one where they were talking? I'm just searching the word church.
No. I think it was the one where it was the three girls and the boy, and like,
so
and
it
then
was
like
Let's
the chorus,
Crash.
they're like,
And then that might be Tomahawk 45 church performance
It was the
with
Let's
Nervous
Crash, the 4-piece vocal group at a recital with choreography, because they had the stop, like the line.
Oh, yes.
And
So let me play that one for
I
Jessica.
need to see this.
Please.
and so like the people filming, I feel like am I forgetting it wrong? I hope I'm not forgetting it wrong.
No, I don't think you are. And by all means, feel free to like share screen, and we could do like a full sesh, because there's something about it. Like
they're just like talking, and then like I'm pretty sure someone comes in and is like, you shouldn't be talking during the performance.
either someone else or one of the people is like, we really shouldn't be talking, and then I think they just keep talking. Like it's such a classic teenage move to just like completely dunk on your friends. And then upload it to the internet.
They're gonna hear this.
So it's you shouldn't be talking during this.
You shouldn't be talking. They're doing a good job, damn it.
But Jessica didn't see the dance moves yet. There we go. Stop right there. Like, so where the crowd went there, they go again. So the three girls put their hands up like in a stop motion at the one boy on the stage.
Oh. And the boy just looks so uncomfortable. Like it just he's maintaining a very strong distance between him and the first girl in the lineup. But just like the way he sort of keeps hugging himself, like he doesn't know what to do with his hands.
He's
but it's just
so
very
far away from everyone else.
I know.
Like, I don't want to be here with my cool swoopy hair.
And then they all do weird little finger point dances.
Those are raptor moves.
Oh, they're all playing they're playing air piano.
Oh, I reckon the blonde in the middle like engineered the whole thing.
100%. She absolutely looks like she did. She is the most into it.
Yeah.
And she's the one in the middle, so
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well.
It reminds me of that picture of Keanu Reeves, like that he took with a couple of girls, and he's got his arm around them, but like he's got the hover hand because it's like he doesn't want to make them uncomfortable.
Oh, it's so good, honestly. Like, and like props to them. Like, Let's Crash. They can hold a tune. Like like it's such a good effort, but just the fact that their friends are like ragging on it, and then they took the extra step and up on it. Like, they were like, well, this will have to do.
And little did you know that boy grew up to be Brendan Urie.
Exactly. Yeah. Stuff.
Full circle.
Oh my goodness.
So what else did you guys like on this list?
The haha idiot one.
Oh,
that was really cute because we couldn't quite figure out where it was from.
Right.
Like I said, maybe Indonesia.
That's what we were wondering. Or like, part of me wanted to say the Philippines, but I don't think it is.
Could be the Philippines.
I don't think so though.
But like, it's just very wholesome, very like just teenagers just hanging out, having a good time with their friends.
But just the sheer production value in this video is wonderful.
And they must have gone and recorded it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they went and did a studio production of the song, and then they went and shot a video.
Yeah.
And outside by the water, and then they cut to this whole story thing. So they really worked on making a whole video.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of other videos that I see where they perform live and they just use the audio from the live performance, and maybe they also cut in a story. But I very seldom see a full cover performed and then a music video made.
Yeah. Like, it's just super wholesome and like, because I think in the description they say that they put it together for their church group, and it would have been so easy to phone it in, but they have like the full scale like music video, they have the narrative running in the background. Like,
and the narrative is like, it's this group of kids, and they all are clearly nice kids in real life, but like I think the idea is one of them has accidentally joined a gang of like disruptive teenagers, and they're gonna go around and play a prank on this lady in the food court.
Yeah.
And then later they all pick up baseball bats and stuff, like they're all gonna go get in a fight.
That's right, yeah.
And it's probably one of their moms as well. And they're pretending to steal from her.
They're pretending they stole something from the food court. Let me find where they're all gonna go get. Okay, she ran. Hold on.
There's a bit where they're smoking in a circle.
Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure the cigarette is a cigarette.
Okay. Yeah. So they're all going off to fight another gang here, right? They all go pick up their giant sticks, and they're all gonna get in a rumble. They're all on their way to a rumble, and then the band itself, the Haha Idiots, really kick into full gear in the video.
They're rocking out.
And I just love that, like the Toyota Camrys.
Yeah.
Like,
and look, he breaks a bottle. He's like, one kid's ready to bring a broken bottle to the fight. And the girl who's in over her head now, she's pulling back from the group, and she runs away. And the whole gang turns on her, and they're like, fuck you. And then they all catch up to her and beat her to death. I'm just kidding. So Jessica can see the end.
But it deserves so many more likes than it has, because it's just brilliant.
So she gets to what I kind of am assuming is like a church or some sort of community outreach place where they like let her in and they lock out the gang so she's safe. Because this is especially why I think it's a church, because there's a theater here.
She gets a dope jacket afterwards.
As well. They hand her a jacket, and she's gonna go watch the Haha Idiots perform.
Yeah.
It's meta. I love it.
Oh no, it turned out the gang was the band.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed that one. Just the sheer amount of effort they put into it. Like, they obviously loved the song and wanted to do like a very earnest tribute to it. Like, it's just lovely. But oh man, oh my god.
What else do you want to?
Oh yes, brilliant. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
So piano cover. So the piano in itself, like, it's great, but it's just so released in January 2012, and it's just the classic like iMovie sort of setup of like bright backgrounds, white text, lots of like face emoji, like XD, and like those 0 underscore little case O faces. And...
Right. And then the whole time, it's just like text on screen talking about how she put the video together and why. I don't know why I'm assuming it's a she. I don't know. Most piano covers I see are female, but
it has
that was totally wrong of me to just assume their gender.
Either teenage girl energy or 40-year-old man energy.
Yeah. So if you have any suggestions for names for my lovely piano, let me know in the comments.
Is anyone leaving suggestions?
Can we go down to the comments and see if anyone did leave piano suggestions?
Oops, I muted it. There we go. We're going to miss some of the... Nope, no comments. Oh, we should let them know.
Do you think they're still looking?
Yeah, what should we name the piano?
I think Bad Friend Teason would be good.
What is it?
Bad Friend Teason.
Bad Friend Teason.
You should name your piano. That's not how you spell piano. Piano. Bad Friend. I type really slowly when I'm leaning over our setup here, and I always don't know how to spell Teason. I'm a bad fan. The I comes first.
That's all right.
Or bad fan, Dan.
bad Fred teaser.
There we go.
And you actually posted it.
Yeah. They need a name for their piano. And we're missing all the text on screen.
It's nearly a 10-year-old video.
And then she wrote on here, breaking news, the green elephants escaped from the zoo, creating quite a ruckus and making the zookeeper quite angry so that he could not call the police.
What?
He was so angry and mean and nasty. So basically, like, instead of just having like a picture of a piano and saying, thanks for listening, here's my cover, they're like filling in all this entertaining
Listen,
fonts.
they learned how to do all this cool stuff in their editing software, and they want to show off that knowledge.
She did mention koalas, so that's a shout out to us, I guess.
Exactly.
Here in sunny Australia. It's not so.
Let's see how this ends. Well, thank you for listening and watching, I guess. I had fun putting this together, so I hope you had fun watching it. Smiley face. He. Yep. And lots of emoticons. Oh, yeah, well, it's 2012, so emojis were still on the way.
It's like a classic time capsule of like 2012, like random raw XD sort of humor.
Yeah.
Like I put in the notes, like it's chaotic, but it's oddly wholesome. Like there's just something about it. Where I'm like, you know what? Like you're super annoying, but I love what you're doing. Like keep it up. So I am sad that no one offered up any piano names until now. So thank you for righting that wrong.
So you guys mark this one as well. This is Panda Scene 12.
So
and this
yeah.
is
I'm Alex Huber, and this is my man and guitarist Daniel Peterson.
Too British.
And I've so many takes.
You're right.
Of who I am, hates who I've been, made famous by Relient K.
And they're like at a school with like sweaters and ties and button-up shirts.
Yeah,
I mean, that was
Work in
basically
other
your school.
countries.
I know.
Oh, that was pretty much my school uniform.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm on board.
My school in my last year tried to become like a private school. Like, let's do blazers and ties and stuff. And we're like, nah, we're public. We know who we are.
That's like I graduated in a class of 7 students, and yet our school thought that it was like big enough to warrant. Yeah, we'll purchase like expensive blazers and ties and button-down shirts, and the girls had to wear kilts until we finally lobbied to be able to wear trousers. And and this is like a school in like country Victoria, like middle of nowhere. And yeah, like summer days, it can get to like 38, 39, 40 degrees Celsius.
Oh, keep going. We don't know what that is in Fahrenheit.
You already said Celsius. I was going to be like, oh, you need
I know.
parkas then.
So no, I'm 100% on board with their uniform. I feel their pain.
Although the
39
guitarist has got like the
Celsius
kind
in
of loose
Fahrenheit.
tie going, so
Yeah, he's cool. Yeah.
I just asked Siri, and that's 102 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So like to be fair, that was our winter uniform, but our summer uniform was just as stuffy. Like
I remember when I was young watching something and they were talking about degrees in Fahrenheit. Well, it's like, they were like, oh, it's 105 degrees out there. I'm like, wow, it gets hot in America. It's really hot. It's really hot. Like, dangerously high up there.
Oh man. Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, save Panda Scene 12. It's just, and I knew I've seen emo culture stuff in England before, but it never ceases to amaze me since it feels like such a specific American thing.
Yeah.
And because he's got the swooped hair.
He does not know what to do with his hand.
Yeah.
Drumming with his hands. To be fair, like I'm always very jealous of people who can hold a tune the way he can. Like, not that I go around like singing out loud in public, but this guy, like, he's confident and he's got the vocal chops to like at least a half decent.
And he sounds British when he sings as
And
well.
Yeah, it's a weird mix of like the SoCal, like emo boy voice with a British accent.
And that's like because, yeah, like growing up listening to this, you take the sort of the SoCal or even just any sort of type of American accent as the standard. But we also need to remember, like for us, for like in the UK, like that's not the default. But so many of like bands that we grew up with or we might have dabbled in, you do try and emulate an accent that isn't yours.
Yeah.
And because the alternative is like singing in a really ochre sort of like, I'm sorry for the person I became.
Like Hands Like Houses do it good.
Yeah.
Like they do the Australian accent with the good singing. But yeah, I've heard some bands it's like very much just sounding like the way I'm talking, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm good.
You do get sort of like twinges of like, it's probably the closest thing I feel to like national like sort of pride is when you hear a decent musician with an Aussie voice.
Yeah.
Because there's not much else to be proud of as an Australian. But it's nice when they can sort of.
So you mean like Iggy Azalea, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she's a national treasure over here. But yeah, like Hands Like Houses, or I'm trying to think of other ones. I can't think off the top of my head, but it's very sweet to be able to hear their actual accent and that they're not trying to copy. Like, yeah.
I remember when she was coming back here to do like, she was a judge on The Voice or something, and she was basically like, I don't want to come back to Australia, but like I'm from here, so I guess I'll do it.
I feel like everyone was like, well, good, we don't want
yeah,
to
it's
come
like
back.
it's like go back to America, it's fine.
All right, what's next?
So Piano Dreamers are a consistent topic for us here. And your note was does what it says on the box?
That's what it says on the box. It's a piano cover.
So
Gotcha.
it's very like it's talented.
Right.
I think again because I don't have the music theory chops to be able to comment much beyond it's really well done. Like, and I always find it a bit jarring. Like, of course you have to do this with a piano cover, but it's always interesting or like a bit jarring to hear them doing the vocal melody as part of the song.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, of course you have to, because that's part of like one of the key elements that makes the song so recognizable. But yeah, I always find it a bit like when I'm listening to a piano cover, I'm like, oh, like.
I was expecting less from it. Like there's more to it than I was expecting as well.
Yeah.
So, and it's probably because of, as you said, like putting in the vocal melodies in the piano.
And this is the same for all their stuff. So we don't really know who or what is behind the Piano Dreamers, but they are one of those like cover bot companies, basically, where it's like one of those like record labels or entertainment companies where it's just their job to grind out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of covers and just inundate streaming services with them. So if you look on Spotify or Apple Music, you'll find this exact same version uploaded 4 times as different things. Like we call it the Piano Dreamers because there was a published CD and it was Piano Dreamers, but you'll also find it like as the piano tribute players and Christian rock tribute players and like piano time.
Yeah.
And it's always a different cover and stuff. So this is like definitely a cover bot sort of thing. And we always check it out, which is, similar to, and this kind of gets the trifecta of these like legally published tribute albums that you'll see for a lot of bands. And Sparrow Sleeps is one, but I know Sparrow Sleeps isn't a cover bot company because they are real people and they actually do this for a living and they put this music out. But like these other ones, like Guitar Tribute Players, that's another one where it's like this faceless. Oh, and it oddly has the
like the thumbnail is the
Pump Goes, but that's incorrect.
Yeah.
So here's acoustic tribute to Relient K, and again, this is like a faceless thing that we come across all the time, where it's like no one's gonna know who the musicians are that made this, and there's dozens of publications of this same track on YouTube, on Spotify.
It's it's like, for instance, like Sparrow Sleeps, those kinds of ones, I equate them with like when I was a teenager, the big one was the Vitamin String Quartet. So like very like those orchestral arrangements of like My Chemical Romance or Blink-182 or something like that. And that's like, they're an institution, like that's their career. It's the same people, at least, or like same sort of conglomerate. But of course, like it makes perfect sense that cover bots are now a thing. Like, but I hadn't quite connected the dots. Like, it's it's kind of depressing because there is a very talented musician behind this, but it just strips away exactly like the whole point of listening to covers is like discovering new musicians and their take on things. But instead it's just like, okay, so here's some very pleasant music, but I have no idea about the person who did it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, okay, and the Vitamin String Quartet, and I was just double checking because I realized there was no that's surprising because there are a bunch of Vitamin String Quartet covers, and for some reason I don't think they didn't do this song for some reason. And the Vitamin String Quartet was one that I thought was a cover bot company for the longest time. I thought they were faceless musicians, but you can actually go to the Vitamin String Quartet's website, and they're like a real group, and you can actually figure out who they are, as opposed to these cover bots where it's like, I don't know how they work. If it's just one company and do they farm out covers to different musicians, and they're like, just make us a cover and it's going to be swallowed up by our publishing company, and no one will know specifically who you are.
Yeah. Because I think like the only reason I know that Vitamin String Quartet are legit is because they were around when I was a kid. So like they sort of came before the days of running up like views and things like that.
Yeah.
But again, like on the other end of the coin, I just never considered that like outside of like those creepy like Elsagate videos. Like of course there are people who are just like farming musical content the same way.
Yeah.
Which depressing when you think about it, but hopefully someone's getting some half decent like publishing rights to, I don't know. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, so there's no Vitamin String Quartet for this, but there is one it's strange because picking on Relient K, the bluegrass tribute, this existed before streaming as well and was on CD. The CD is super expensive now because I guess no one bought it at the time, so now it's rare and it's gone up in price. But this is another one of those tribute companies that just do bluegrass tributes to all kinds of bands, and they did a Relient K one, and they did Who I Am, It's Who I've Been.
What song is this?
Who I Am.
I'm kidding, Danny.
Well, they spelled it wrong. It says Who I Am, Hate Who I've Been.
Yeah.
You might think I'm losing my mind, but I will shy away from the specifics.
See, I enjoy this kind of stuff because it's different enough.
Jessica's not into it.
It's the vocals. The vocals throw me. It's the vocals.
He's like a little wistful. He's like, oh.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like I'm in line waiting to get a table at Cracker Barrel, which is this. I don't know if you've heard. I can't imagine you have it, but have you ever heard of it? It's like the southern.
Cracker Barrel is. I used to work for like a market research company that had US clients, so like I have a vague like sketched out idea of what Cracker Barrel means.
Okay.
And like, so your summation of it, that aligns with what I think. So I'm still very comfortable in saying, yes, I know what Cracker Barrel is.
I only know it because of these wrestlers that I follow. They had like a big thing and they were doing a show. And like they have a television show now, but they were doing a show and they got sponsored by Cracker Barrel, and they actually did a spot where one of the guys had a barrel and like rolled it in another one and like Donkey Konged over it. I don't even know what they do in Cracker Barrel besides have crackers and barrels, but like
I think because we also have Cracker Barrel brand cheese over here, but I don't.
We do have Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, we have that too, but they're not connected.
Okay.
But like, we don't have a restaurant. It's just the cheese.
So I literally picture a restaurant where you just eat cheese and crackers, which I know is absolutely not true. Although I wish it were.
Have you guys ever been to like a Hard Rock Cafe or a Planet Hollywood or one of those kind of restaurants where there's
we have Hard Rock over here? Yeah.
I don't even know where we have Hard Rock.
There's one in Sydney still. There used to be one in Melbourne, but it closed years ago.
Yeah.
But the one in Sydney, they have one of Taylor Swift's outfits. So I was like, yes.
Did they have a Planet Hollywood in like Dreamworld or something?
Possibly?
Movie World? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
so imagine that, but like it's just Southern stuff on the walls.
Yeah.
And like that's what they're exhibiting.
You know what it's like? It's like how we took your culture and bastardized it for Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah, we don't even have blooming onions over here.
I know.
We don't even have that over here.
Well, we took our own Southern culture in America and we bastardized it into the Cracker Barrel restaurant. So it's like fried chicken and like grits and fried apples.
Southern comfort food.
Southern comfort food. There's also like But there's also general stuff that's not specifically Southern. Like you could just get
old people.
Like, yeah, just food. You can get old people.
Yeah.
They serve old people.
Exactly. My favorite.
Yeah, so it's like it also has like diner food, like eggs and pancakes and stuff. Yeah. Actually, thinking of Christian music and stuff, there was a Christian rap rock group from Australia called Beanbag.
Never heard.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can track them down for you, though.
The only rap rock group I can think of is 28 Days, and they were not good.
No.
Okay.
They were like Australia's Limp Bizkit.
Yeah. So I guess Beanbag tried to be Australia's Limp Bizkit, but they were Christian, and they did a tour. They were like a small band. I think they, by all accounts, in every country they were a small band, but they did have an American tour from whatever Christian record label they were on, and they played a small show with like 25 people there in New Hampshire. I saw them. And so we like talked with them a bunch. And this goes back to our Manic Monday discussion of how like it was easy to talk to many different kinds of bands at different shows. And a lot of mid-level bands would play at this specific club, but in this case, it was like an off night. Beanbag, an Australian Christian rap rock group, and this is like 2000. This is like 99 or 2000. So after the show was over, they just hung out with us like dorky teenagers, and we're just hanging out because they had nothing else to do. Oh, they couldn't get a hotel that night because it was New Hampshire and it was leaf peeping season. And like in New Hampshire, like every hotel is full because like all the trees and they turn orange in the fall. Like you can't get a hotel in New Hampshire in the fall. Anyway, I asked them the dorky question you ask every Australian you meet when you're an American. And I said like, oh, what do you think of Outback Steakhouse? And his thing was like, we never put cheese on fries. Do you think that's still true? No. Okay.
We've sort of started to do it, but it's like, it's definitely for like, if there's like kitschy, like American diners over here.
Gotcha.
Also, we don't call them bean bags. We call them lumpy sacks over here.
No, we don't.
I know that band broke up because they were on tour and they flipped their van.
Oh no, beanbag.
I know. I think they had 2 albums. Check them out if you're interested.
I'm going to do a deep dive. I want to try and track them down for you, and I'll hook you guys up. Because it's pretty incredible. Like any sort of like 2000s even era sort of band that has since disbanded, it's incredibly easy to find what they've been doing since. Like,
okay.
If you reach a certain tier of popularity over here, and then somehow the media still has tabs on you, like it'll be like, this front man is now an accountant in Sydney. It's just like, okay.
Mostly they're an accountant or they work in a warehouse.
Like
on the forklift.
Which honestly, like, good for them because the Australian music industry is a bit cooked. But I'm going to try and find them for you.
I mean, it's no wonder like someone like Iggy Azalea would go to America to like become a huge star.
Yeah, there's sort of, I think we talked about this last time, but like there's no in between level. Like either you sort of play pubs and you just sort of make a living that way, or you skyrocket and then you have to sort of market yourself overseas.
Like Kylie Minogue is our music royalty, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
The best. Well, sorry, I'm just looking at the shared screen. The best.
So you guys didn't. Oh, sorry. Yeah. You didn't mark this one, but I want to make sure to play it. This is uploaded by Sky Rivera on YouTube, 2013. And this isn't even like a cover. It's just some kids hanging out like outside a mall at a picnic table.
I think I saw a Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say they're hanging out outside a Cracker Barrel.
That does look like a Cracker Barrel building.
Like Cracker Barrel.
So it's just it's a vertical camera phone video. Oh, they're both just 2 camera phones there. The other one's horizontal. And they're just hanging out at a picnic table with their helmets and their pads, and they clearly biked or skateboarded there, and they're just hanging out, rocking out.
It was like our favorite one had 2 thumbs.
We'll have to play
Yes. Look it up.
On a bad day, I would probably start crying. Like I would miss this kind of situation. Like Yeah, there's this meme that's like, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but like there's this meme where it's like everyone who owned one of these furniture sets, like outdoor furniture sets, like always had like really intense conversations at 3 a.m.
Was it like the white plastic chairs?
It's like very specific, like white plastic chairs, or it's the like glass table, like outdoor setting. Like it's just a very specific marker for like, yeah, like you hang here and you talk shit with your friends and get super deep into things. Like that is giving me that same feeling of like, oh, I miss that.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Stop right there, that's exactly where I lost it. I see that line and never should have crossed it.
Thanks for listening, and catch us next week as we do part 2.